Can you guys hear me and see me? What is happening, guys? I'm still working out these kinks with this software. I promise I will get it down one of these days, but maybe it just sort of keeps things interesting. So, first and foremost, tonight we are actually going to be painting a dinosaur, and this one is for my sorry, we have cats in here. It's crazy in here. This one is for my nephew Andy because he loves dinosaurs, and so my favorite dinosaur is the T-Rex, so I thought, let's have some fun with that. It's like an Animal House up in here. I don't know. So we are going to be doing this dinosaur first and foremost. Let's go down to the description below. It's okay, just let her be in here. Okay, let's go down to the description below and you can download this image. So it's a dinosaur image. It is this image. It's a sketch. We can get up there. It's this sketch and you can download that and trace it. You can sketch your own T-Rex if you want. You can also transfer it. Like when I transfer this guy, I just take a pencil and put it on the back of the paper and transfer it that way. You can also use transfer paper, which looks like this, too, if you've got it. So let's see. So download that and we'll get started on that. I will show you the supply list that we're using tonight. Not much has changed than normal, but a couple things that I'd like to touch on is you'll need a little bit of salt, and that might be a smidge to a pinch. You'll also need a hairdryer potentially. We're going to be working wet and wet tonight, and we're also going to be blending colors and letting them blend. We'll do a little bit of the splatter technique as well. And what else am I missing? We're also going to be using a little bit of mixing of primary colors. So what I mean by that is, I'm going to be mixing two colors that create another color. So when we mix primary colors, they create our secondary colors. So if you mix blue and red, you're going to get a purple color. If you mix green and yellow, blue and yellow, there we go, blue and yellow, you get a green color. And if you mix red and yellow, you get an orange color. And so I feel like these are the best colors to do this project with, just to see what happens. But you can use any colors that you want. Again, there is a list here that I used opera pink in one of these, and I used teal color, used those two together. I also used a green and kind of a raw umber color. So really it's up to you. We're just gonna have fun. You're gonna make this your own tonight, and the whole point is just to enjoy the process. And I'm here to facilitate that. So if you're new here and you don't know who I am, my name is Paige. I'm the Chief Pixel Pusher and Paintbrusher over at Gumption, and I'm going to help facilitate some creative work for you. So let's have some fun and let's get started. Okay. So these were two different dinosaurs that I did, and this was the first one that I did, and I felt like he needed a little jazzing up, so of course the splatter technique came into play, and I feel like that's much more fun, so we're gonna do that tonight. If you have any questions, feel free to put them down in the comments below. I appreciate you being here, and I think we're gonna have a fun evening. And I will give you one tip that I think is a great tip, is coasters that you get. I get these coasters when I buy stickers, and these are great for dabbing your brush on and getting extra water off. So if you ever run across those or you collect them, they do have a great purpose. Okay, So hopefully by now you're ready to join me. If not, it won't take you long to catch up, I'm sure. And we're going to do what's called a wet and wet technique. Well, actually, I guess I better mix some colors first. So I decided I was going to use blue and yellow to create my guy. So I got to mix my color here. So you still have time to trace if you need to do that. So I'm mixing this teal blue color, which is already kind of a mixture of colors, but it'll make a really fun green. So you can kind of see it over here a little bit. How is your evening going? It's Thursday, it's Friday Eve, right? Hopefully you've had a good week this week. So here I'm mixing a warm yellow, and I think you can kind of see it on the screen. It's a little bit in shadow here, but this is kind of a, I think this is permanent yellow deep. Whoops. And it's a great color. So I have my colors mixed now, and I have 2 receptacles for water, one to clean off my dirty brush, and one so I have clean water when I need it, when I'm lifting color or I'm using a wet and wet technique. So you can see my T-Rex here. He is sketched out on my paper. I see a spot that I missed here. And all I'm going to do first off is just take clean water and dab it all along his body. I'm going to go around his eye because his eye is so tiny that I don't want paint to go in there just yet. But wherever there's water, paint will flow. So you'll want to kind of, like here I'm on the side here so I can see just exactly where my water's going. And I have a pretty good sized brush. This is a size 10 brush. And sometimes if you have the heater on, your water can dry up pretty quick. So it pays to work fast. And you want to get it pretty wet, but you don't want to totally soak him. For me, I live in Idaho and it's pretty dry here. Doesn't take long for things to start drying out on the page. Okay. So you may not be able to see that very well. There you go. You can kind of see that. See how wet that is? I stayed within the lines. I'm actually going to start, I think, with the yellow color first because it's the light one. And just dab it and move it around. That's what's great about watercolors. It creates this beautiful effect that can't be duplicated anywhere else, unlike oil or acrylic. All right. Gonna add a little dab in here and see, just watch that go. It's just awesome. And you can just pull that bead along. I always have hair in mine because I have 2 cats. It seems like you can never get away from the cat hair. Okay. Now we can always add detail later, but we're really working on that effect. Now look here how it's spreading. That's pretty neat, isn't it? So we'll go up here, and that I got a little too wet there. So I can just dab at it with a paper towel. No problem. They go along here. This has quite a bit of water in it. And you can use a smaller brush for this part if you want to. You can just kind of watch what it does, how it mixes. And you can push it along with your brush. Now I know I said earlier that this class will probably max take an hour. It'll probably be a little quicker than that. So if you're in a time crunch, just know that's how it will be. And don't be afraid to say hello down in the chat if you're here. Kind of wild looking right now. I'm going to get a smaller brush, I think. And this is this is good because we're going to move into the salt here next. And the salt is the fun part. So I'm just kind of cleaning up some of those edges to make sure that I have everything covered. With these, you gotta watch these little brushes because oftentimes they have water on the ferrule and it'll just drop right down in the middle of your painting where you don't want it to drop. Okay, so next you can see I'm getting out my salt shaker and I'm just gonna pour some salt into my hand here. This is probably more than I need, but what I do is I take a little pinch and I drop it in my little guy here. And this is a part where you probably need a hair dryer. And mine is on the other side of the room. And what happens is this creates an effect where the salt is. So I can show you on both of these. Let's see. You can see kind of this pigmentation here. That's what the salt does. And you have to wait for it to dry. So you got a little hang loose time. And here's some of those effects as well. Pretty neat, huh? So I'm going to let that dry. Now, you could drop in some color. Let's just get adventurous, right? I'm going to drop in a little bit of a darker color. I'm taking Sodalite here and mixing it with that teal. I mean, kind of while you're waiting, right? And you see kind of what's happening there. You can also use salt water, so you can mix salt into your water that you use to paint with. And what it does is it causes the paint to float on top and create fun, crazy designs. And so you can do that as well, although I kind of think it is a little bit hard on brushes, so you want to make sure if you do that you clean your brushes really well afterward. So I'm just dropping in a little color here. And hoping this guy dries soon. This is probably one of my favorite techniques, is using salt. Oftentimes when I do a portrait, I'll do the background and use salt in the background just to create texture and interest there. And I suppose while I'm waiting for that to dry. This guy has a little teeny tiny eye. And so I'm going to take my tiny brush. This could be a 1 or a 2. And because I went around that area, I can just drop in a little eye. So at least, you know, he doesn't look like a zombie or anything. So I see, Laurel, you said the dinosaur was definitely harder to draw than the flamingo. Yes, this guy was pretty small and he had some small details. So if you had difficulty drawing this guy, I'm sorry. I tried to make him at 8.5 by 11 just so he can fit on printer paper. He's got some little parts like little toenails and toes and things. And so he definitely wasn't as easy as the flamingo. And I have no doubt that my nephew is going to be a good critic when it comes to drawing this guy, because he knows all about drawing dinosaurs. I'm just taking some of this wet paint in here and dabbing in areas that I missed. And I'm going to put in his toenails while I'm waiting here because I can kind of do that. I like to round robin when I paint, so one area dries and then I can work in another area, but this guy is all wet, so we will just have to wait. So what you can do at this point, you can get out your hair dryer and dry him. I actually use a diffuser in general, and so I find I like using a diffuser to dry these guys because it disperses the air a little bit, so it's not full blast in one spot, and it works pretty good that way. Also, I got out this sponge too, and before I forget, you can use a sponge also to create texture. We aren't probably going to use it tonight because we are using the salt, but whenever you are interested in creating texture in an area, you can always take a dry sponge. It'll soak up water in certain areas and leave an interesting design. You can also use saran wrap and scrunch it up on whatever you're painting and let it dry, and it will create an unusual design as well. So there you go. There's some texture tips. Texture tips on Thursday for you. I got kind of salt everywhere here. Okay, I'm just lifting out some wet area here. So while we're waiting for paint to dry, I'm going to actually grab a tool that I need and let the cat out because she's locked in here with me. And I will be right back. So keep painting. Well, I guess Lucy's in here for the duration, so it could get exciting in here. Okay, so I have grabbed my hair dryer so I can do a little drying. And I'll mute this for you because you don't want to listen to this. And you'll note that I don't have my diffuser. I lost it somewhere here, so we'll just use this and use it really lightly. And I'll turn the sound off here. Okay, so this wasn't too long to dry, and that's good. It was already kind of on the way to drying. Now, I have this thing that's called a rubber cement pickup. It looks really grody, but it is actually really handy to pick up masking fluid and to remove salt. And so I kind of like the colors. I'll probably go in and paint a little bit more here, but I'm going to show you what it looks like when we remove the salt. In order to remove the salt, you're going to want to make sure that this is dry, completely dry. And then you can take your finger, a clean finger, or you can take your pickup and you just scrub along the salty areas. And it comes right up. And so then I just dump this into my trash. Okay, and you can feel with your finger to see if salt is still hanging on there, because sometimes it does. And why this technique of using these primary colors works so well is because these colors mix so nicely together oftentimes. And we can keep painting along. So you can see this texture here. Let's see if this will focus. See this nice texture that this leaves? And we can continue to work with that. So here I need to define him a little bit more. So I'm going to go back in with some of my teal and maybe mix it with a little bit of Sodalite and start going in and defining his legs and his toes. So you're going to need some smaller brushes for this. And these are both, I don't know what this is. This is a 1 and maybe this is a 3. Not sure. You can tell how much I've used these brushes, that they don't have numbers on them anymore. So this is where you can have some fun. Just playing with a little paint, playing with the texture. We don't want to necessarily cover the texture, but we want to just enhance it, clean up some lines. If you have pencil showing through, don't worry about that. Sometimes it kind of adds to the whole flavor of your piece. Here I'm going in and maybe mix some of this. These two colors, you can see, make this really awesome green color. Now, in some areas, you'll see that it's kind of, the paint acts kind of funky when you're going over some of these salty areas. It still creates kind of some fun texture. Not anything to worry about. Okay. And you can really have fun with this. I love these guys because they, you know, you see the costumes that they make now and memes that they make. So fun. So I'm using this teal color kind of up here, and then I'm going to use my solid yellow in here. Clean up some of these lines. And a little maybe around his eye, because I left that out. I think I might also, this other arm that's kind of in the background, go in and kind of differentiate that guy a little bit. Make him more in shadow. So if you're in chat, I'm really curious to know if you have a favorite dinosaur that you like or that your kids like. I am not as well versed as my nephew Andy on the subject, but I'd be curious to know what his is too. This guy also has a tongue that sticks out. It's kind of hard to see in this drawing. But I'm going to see if I can paint it a little bit. He's got all those teeth, you know. They also have the side of their mouth here. That is kind of interesting. So now we're just kind of working in the details and making him kind of come to life. Defining some of these edges. His nostrils, which I'm going to use a little bit of Sodalite for his nostrils. And a little bit in his mouth. So we can kind of see that it's dark in there. I'm also going to define his teeth a little bit. Now you kind of really need a small brush for this, so you don't have to be, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just sketching them in here. I was looking for a dinosaur voice or roar for this podcast, but I didn't find one yet. And I thought Andy would enjoy that and the other kids too. So you see now he starts to kind of come alive. Oh, Andy's is the T-Rex. That's awesome, Andy. we have the same favorite dinosaur. And the salt technique is pretty fun, right? Like it really creates a lot of texture. So thanks, Laurel. I appreciate that. And I can't wait to see what your guys' paintings look like. I love to see the work that students do. So if you do something that you're really proud of, share it with me or share it in social media with me. Or if you know my number, you can just text me that. This guy needs a little bit more definition, but he is coming to life, I think. I'm going to throw in his shoulder here. What's fun about this, so this is light enough that if I want to add lines or a jawline here, we can do that pretty easily. Oops, too much pigment there. I'm just gonna kind of go along here, and you can see I'm kind of flipping between the two. This might have a little shadow here on this leg, so I think I might actually put a little of this here. Soften that edge by dipping my brush in water and tap it on my napkin, and then softly going against that edge, and it just softens it right up. I might want to bring it a little further down here. And the salt technique, along with the splatter technique, really makes you loosen up a little bit and just enjoy the process. You know, sometimes we get kind of wrapped up in controlling our artwork, and this just is a fun assignment. And the point is to let the watercolor do a lot of the work for us. Okay. So this guy needs a little more defined eye. So I've got this really tiny brush that I love to use. It's a golden Taklon brush. It's a Trekell brush 5-0. It's super long, which if I were to do it again, I would get probably something that wasn't as long for watercolor. It's handy if you're doing oil and you're sitting at an easel. So now I'm going to kind of go around this eye, kind of like an almond shape. Whoops. And then I'm going to give him a little pupil, because that's really going to help him look like he has an eye. Now this is pretty small, so you can't probably get into your regular detail, and that is okay. So he's starting to kind of come to life, and then I'm going to take some of my teal color and kind of shape this eyelid a little bit, or the brow kind of area here. I may need a little bit more of a darker color, but we're going to work with this cobalt teal for now. Kind of this bridge up to here. Dabbing off any excess paint on my napkin here. And there's this area between the eyes. Kind of this brow ridge. How's your dinosaur looking? Are you having fun yet? Are we having fun yet? I'm going to kind of shape this area here. Don't have to get too carried away with it, but just to make him look like he's got an eye in. This area is really interesting in their mouth. It's like a cheek of their mouth or something. I feel like his jawline needs a little bit more definition, so we'll do that here too. These brushes that are tiny like this, for me, are sort of like the icing on the cake. They can kind of add those little details that that I love, you know. And you may not have a tiny brush, and that's okay. Use what we have. These guys also have kind of this folds of skin here, I guess. So I'm giving him some of that a little bit. Okay. So we'll get to the splattering soon, I promise. I'm not far from that. I'm going to work on his toes a little bit, just giving him a little bit of definition here. And then we're going to give him a shadow underneath. We're going to be doing wet and wet again as well. Just softening that edge with a little bit of water. And I mean, you can really go all out on how muscly you want this guy to be. But now we're going to do the shadow. And so what I'm going to do, I've cleaned out my big brush. I'm using a big brush here. So I'm using this 10. And I am just going to do like we did when we did him, his body. I'm just going to go underneath him with some water. I'll lift this up here and see if you can see that. Okay. And then I'm going to take a gray color, which is Sodalite or a Payne's gray if you have that. And just go along under his feet. Kind of the length of his body there. I felt like he needed a little grounding, right? So, and you can use more pigment in your water if you want, and have fun with that. What's great about this Sodalite color is it spreads. It has lots of granulation, and it spreads. So sometimes it's just fun to play with the water and see what it does. Let it do what it does best. Now you can keep working on this and working on your details if you want. You can add other colors in if you want to at this point. It's dry. I'm not going to do that because I really enjoy how these colors mixed with the salt, and I love that texture. And so I don't want to over illustrate it. I want to just enjoy the textures there, and then comes the splattering. So I'm using my big brush here, and of course you get bigger splatters when you use a bigger brush. and you kind of want to have it loaded with water and paint. And there are a couple ways that you can do this. So you can take another brush and tap. Look at that, isn't that cool? Or you can really give it the once over, right? And go after it that way. What's kind of fun is when the two colors mix together. So I'm going to mix some more yellow here, and we're going to do the same thing with the yellow. And you'll probably wind up wearing a little bit of it, so I'm sorry in advance. I think if you are getting paint all over yourself when you're painting, you're doing it right. Okay, so that's a lot of splattering. But I think, you know, sometimes when you get a spot next to another spot and they blend, it's kind of fun. You can also dip your brush just in water and splatter, and sometimes that will make these things spread a little. But I'm also going to get some of this Sodalite and get some of those splatters too. Now I did share this technique on my cow that I did a couple weeks ago, but it's really fun. It forces you to just relax and loosen up and have fun with it. It adds a little bit of excitement to your piece, and it's just a fun technique to use. But if you're interested in that video, you can also find it here on this channel. Okay. What do you think, guys? We made it within 48 minutes with problems with my sound and everything. We did pretty good today. So tell me, do you have any questions for me? At this point, I would just let this dry, and you can still continue to work on it, or you can be done with it. Maybe you're happy with the granulation or where this wound up for you. And I don't see any questions in chat. One thing I did want to tell you since you're here is that I released a video yesterday and did this winter scene. So if you're looking for something to do while you're in quarantine tomorrow, feel free to go check out this video. It's a 15-minute video, and you can learn how to paint a winter scene. So go check that out. I'll leave that here in the end notes in this video. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you learned something new today. I hope you had fun. And if you want to find me on the interweb, you can find me on social media. Everywhere. I'd love to see your paintings, so feel free to tag me when you get your paintings done if you share them in social media. So thank you. Thanks for tuning in. I'm super excited to have some of my family on tonight and look forward to seeing what you painted. Give me a shout if you have any questions, and have a great rest of your evening. Tomorrow's Friday, so maybe it's Friday. I don't know. Okay, that's it for me. Thanks for tuning in. Tune in next week. We'll have another class, and I'll talk to you later.